Yes, everybody. Hope everybody is doing well. It's a Friday settings, and welcome to the very first episode of CM's United Report. Once again, CM's United Report. We're gonna be here weekly. I don't know how many times, because you never know when there could be an emergency episode needed to report something, especially with the ownership situation going on and other stuff here and there. But we've got a lot of stuff to discuss. But first and foremost, let me big up everybody that was here before the stream started and earlier. So first and foremost, big up to Eddie's Football Waffle saying big ups. There's always a Vlahovic, if you know, Harry Kane in the thumbnail saying potentially, is that not going to happen? Is it going to happen? We will find out and speak about it a little later in the show. Super Nick as well, big up yourself. Also saying the sick bay is filling up. What are we going to do? And one of the first things we're going to do in this little stream is speak about Eric Ten Hag's presser, which, you know, Super Nick and also Manj, big up to Manj as well, is alluding to. So we're definitely going to speak about that. Super Nick also saying big up and welcome to everybody inside. So first and foremost, before I get into everything else, be sure to drop a like on the video. Subscribe to CM22ENT if you're new for more episodes of the United Twins. And quick update on the United Twins as well. I said that due to the fact that we're facing Leeds basically back-to-back in fixtures next game on Sunday, I just said I'm going to do a double roundup of the games rather than do two different episodes. Just do a double roundup where, say, I speak about the first game, Cappy speaks about the second game, and then we kind of mix and match and all of that good stuff. So look out for the United Twins coming next week. And look out for the Stay United watch along on Sunday as well, ladies and gentlemen. But let's get into the first thing I wanted to touch on, which is Eric Ten Hag's presser for the Leeds game on Sunday. Now, there were a lot of things going into this one, and like I said with the guys alluding in the chat, Super Nick, Manj, there are some injury problems to go into. So I'm going to switch to my desktop outlook. Let me know if everything's cool, everything you can see it. But, you know, the first question, Eric Ten Hag was asked about whether Anthony, Martial and McTominay could be available for Sunday. And he said, I don't expect it, but there are still some days and I don't have to, you know, I don't expect it at the same time. If I can oversee it from now, I don't see any new problems coming up, which is a positive. You was also asked the question straight after with the three of them, can you see them being available for the Barcelona match, which is our European game coming up real soon? And he said the same answer. Can't say 100%, but I don't expect it. And that is a huge problem. I can even go into this one, feels a team update. And it's pretty much the same thing. I believe Aaron Wan-Bissaka was also out, because so it says here, it remains to be seen whether Aaron Wan-Bissaka has recovered from the illness, which has kept him out of Wednesday's game. Diogo Dalot is back from his own issues that he had, so that's a positive. But hopefully Aaron Wan-Bissaka's situation is not too significant to the point where once again we're gonna get hurt. And you know, going back to Manj's comment here talking about squad depth, Eric Ten Hag, he does speak about it, and he does, you know, allude to the fact that it is going to be a tough season with the World Cup and all of the things that come with it. But we will get into that in a second, ladies and gentlemen. Speaking about, once again, the injuries, long-term ones, but is that a consequence of playing so many matches with the Barcelona games coming up as well, and then the FA Cup game? Could that be a detrimental effect on your season, being that being the only team still competing on 4 fronts in 4 competitions? And Ten Hag basically said that if you see Christian Eriksen, you can't see that as an impact from the tough season, but it definitely is a tough season with the World Cup in between and a lot of overload from the players. Once again, you know, Premier League, Europe, Carabao Cup, FA Cup, a lot of different competitions. And then the process is already, you know, longer term going on, that the load on the players is too much. And that is it's an interesting topic to go over, because when you think about it, it's like, how are these big governing bodies going to find a way to bring balance back to sport? Because it seems like, especially with the Champions League format changing in 2023-24 season, how are you going to find the gaps in the week where, you know, you the players are going to get some breaks. Now, bear in mind, obviously, it's not going to be a World Cup year, so there probably will be more opportunities and fixtures will be more spread out, but still, there's going to be so many games to play. You know, some of the top teams, they be playing, what, 40 plus games a season? If that, sometimes even more, I believe. So, yeah, that's just another thing to think about. And he says, is it too much to suggest that the impact of the World Cup could have on your season? Is it going to have an impact on Manchester United? How you train the players, the number of players you have available, whether the players are tired or are you, and you are going to have to push them through anyway. And he says, well, Christian Eriksen, you can't put under that reason. Martial, you also can't put under that reason. It's also individual, how we can see it, how we can find things happen. Also, that's just injuries. And if you play top football, that's how you find limits. Injuries will come up. So, you know, you understand that answer from Erik ten Hag. And let me know what you think in the comments, by the way. In terms of injuries, you can look at the likes of Anthony Martial as just unlucky, because in the end of the day, Anthony Martial has been an injury-prone player, and he's been injured since the start of the campaign. Christian Eriksen, you could see for a little while, potentially fatigue starting to set in that regard. Now, you can say that was just an unlucky challenge. It was a reckless challenge by Andy Carroll in that Reading game. But even you could see for weeks on end now, and even in that Leeds performance, a few players up there, you can see potentially fatigue setting in, and that affects the quality that you have on the ball, the quality to play well as individuals and as a team. Super Nick saying, it's out of control now. The greed and the idea of having the most money and assets seem to be the club priorities. It's no longer trophies. That's an interesting one, Super Nick, there. I think, you know, and we'll talk about it at the end of this presser. He was asked about the Super League. We can actually go into that one now before we head into Alejandro Garnacho, which was pretty much a key topic towards the end of this press conference. So he was asked about the Super League returning, you know, what is his stance in it? And he said, I am aware of the dynamic and what is going on, the evolution of football. If they are coming up with new ideas, I have to take a look at it, and then I will make an opinion. I'm not aware, as we are playing so many games at this moment, and we have to develop this team with new players, and we have some problems we bring in. That is where my focus point is, and I need all my energy about new European competitions, and all the people at this club will have a look at it and will inform me if the time is there. If the moment is there, we have to make decisions, and decisions are up to the club. So, yeah, in the end of the day, you know, Ten Hag, he's pretty neutral at this moment of time because of the schedule that's going on and everything with that. You know, the Super League is interesting. If you guys saw kind of the video that they put out in the end of the day, kind of re-announcing the Super League and saying that they have to save Europe, it was a funny one. And I feel like a lot of people have that opinion from the last time it came out, saying, listen, we don't want another Super League where you can have the top teams in Europe playing basically week in, week out, competing for a title, because in the end of the day, that diminishes the impact of the Champions League, which is, you know, heritage in football. The Premier League as well, because if you find yourself in a scenario where, you know, you're rotating teams in the Premier League because you want to play your strongest sides in the Super League, then does that become a problem and diminish the impact and the whole aura of the Premier League within itself and the other cups, just like what's happened to the Carabao Cup and somewhat to the FA Cup too? Let me know what you think in the comments as well. Man saying, and this is an interesting one, drop me out of the Europa to free up the schedule a little so the players can rest. What do you guys think about that in the comments if you're watching after the stream? And also in the comments right now, that is an interesting one. I know man just had that opinion before. Me, I'm always hesitant to say that because I feel like when you go into games, you want to win, innit? You want to win, you want to stay in as many competitions as possible. But if it does start to, you do have to ask the question, how will that affect us going forward in the Premier League? We're currently third, drop points against these, and you can see in recent times at least that there is a bit of fatigue setting in within the camp, and we don't have a lot of breaks. I think on a United Twins episode before the start of February, we did some mathematics, and we averaged about, what was it, three days of a gap in between games. So sometimes more, sometimes less. So, there's gonna be a lot of questions regarding that, and it is quite interesting. Super Nick also saying Martial has had a hip injury and won't be available anytime soon. I love what he can bring, but we cannot be dependent on him, which again is an interesting conversation, Super Nick. A lot of people kind of saying, is it time that we consider selling Anthony Martial? There was a story that came out, in fact, before the Leeds game that said that Manchester United were open to exploring those options in selling Anthony Martial in the summer. So, once again, that is an interesting one. A shout out to Kerwin Carter Williams. Hope you're doing well. Your day's been blessed. Appreciate you coming by every time, saying good luck with the channel. Thank you very much, and big up yourself for coming through. It's good to see you here. But yeah, regarding Anthony Martial, there's a lot of things going on, and questions have to be asked. Big up to Drizzy in the cut. Hope you're doing well. Your day's been blessed. Appreciate you coming by each and every time as well. Big ups to Drizzy. And large ups to everybody inside. But we can move over to Garnacho, actually, because, Drizzy mentions Alejandro Garnacho. Let's move back over to this screen. Because Erik ten Hag was asked about him in depth right now. Well, quite a few times he was asked about, his development and how he's come along, and potentially his attitude as well, which a lot of people have been questioning. After the Leeds game, there was a lot of criticism for Alejandro Garnacho, and I see both sides to the story, because in the end of the day, there's the fact that, potentially people saying he had a bad performance, and there was a bit of criticism. Some people felt some of the criticism was unwarranted, and they felt kind of sympathetic with Alejandro Garnacho, and some people felt, you know what, you're at the club at Manchester United, you need to be able to take constructive criticism, which is very important. Constructive criticism, and move forward with that in order to become a better player. And I think Ten Hag sees that, because in the end of the day, he said, yeah, he was lively in that Leeds game, but also he has to score one of the chances he has. Because he had a couple of good opportunities. I believe the Bruno cross, where he takes a touch and kind of drags the ball wide, and then the one where he was played in by Bruno again, goes around the goalkeeper, sits down Luke Ayling, and then also tries to play it in the goal, but it's cleared off the line by Warbear, I believe, from Leeds United. If it's clear in my mind, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. So maybe one of those two chances. And he said, at this club, you have to be a player that's impactful. And if you're an impactful forward, you're scoring goals, you're getting assists in the end of the day. And that's the most important thing for Alejandro Garnacho. But also, and Drizzy said, I don't want to hear about his age excuse. And I hear that 100%, Drizzy. But also, he is a player at this time that needs a bit of patience in that regard, because he shouldn't be, in my opinion, nowhere near a starting every week kind of player. We should have players in that position where Alejandro should be learning from, looking up to, and having an impact every now and then. But he's been brought up, and he's definitely shown why he deserves to be, a player in the first team, training and getting better. But like what a lot of people said, there is a lot of improvement to be made, and you can't argue with that from an 18-year-old. In the end of the day, some people have good games, some people have bad games. I thought in that Leeds performance, a lot of people had bad performances in the end of the day. A lot of people had bad games. Fred didn't have his best game. Garnacho didn't have his best game. Weghorst didn't have his best game, even though he impacted the game in other ways that a lot of people didn't see, in terms of just impacting it with the goals. He struggled at times. A lot of players, So we have to remember that, and remember it's a team game and a team performance at the same time. So have to hold everybody accountable and get out of this negative habit of, calling out and singling out certain players, because we have to remember everybody is part of a performance in the end of the day. Drizzy also saying, when it is Elanga, it is warranted criticism, but it is Garnacho, he needs time. Well, you know what? I've also thought Elanga, his criticism has been unfair, because when you look at his situation, he was dragged into the team in a time where we were, our striking options, our attacking options were depleted. I believe under Ralph Rangnick, we had lost a certain player who shall not be named for now. And Yeah, and he came into the team and kind of got forced into the team and forced to make an impact. And I feel like sometimes when there's a situation like that, of course, people will say you need to take your opportunities, you need to take your chances, but also your development can be stunted. So I don't think it's the time to turn your back on Anthony Alanga as well, because he's still another player that needs to be able to develop in the right situation, in the right environment. And Manchester United is still developing that environment right now, developing that culture. You know, there's going to be a takeover of the club between now and potentially the summer. So how can you really say, especially with the younger players in the team, that, you know, the jury's out on them? I'm not doing that right now. Let me know what you think about that in the comments as well. Super Nick also saying, let me move back to the screen. Super Nick saying, we are operating with a skeleton squad with inexperience and the new players who have become starters because of injury. ETH is working on scraps right now. And, you know, we've got to remember that because, you know, there's been the talk of the title charge and stuff like that. But in the end of the day, we've got to remember that, you know, we're working with a lot of different things. A lot of players that have been here in previous regimes may or may not be here in the future. And Erik ten Hag himself, he's going to make mistakes. He's going to make thingies. But that's all because he wants to see what these players are made of. And these players are trying to prove themselves to a certain extent as well. And they will have some good games, some bad games. It will be an up and down season. And I look at the roadmap from here on out, and I look at the fixtures, look at the congestion, the injuries we already have. It could be a pretty rough end to the season, or at least the next couple of months. So we've got to be prepared for that. And one thing I'll say to the fans is not to get too mad, not to get too upset and go up and down in that cycle, because that can just mentally wear you out. You've got to kind of look at things with context and say, look, this is where we are right now as a club. We've done awfully well to be in third position right now and take advantage of, you know, the other people's scenarios. But yeah, situations with like Newcastle being below us, Manchester City there, Arsenal above us. But even those two teams at the moment, you know, questions need to be asked. But in the end of the day, it is what it is. So we'll see what happens after that. We'll see what happens after that. Super Nick saying Ahmad is needed, in my opinion. But you know how that goes. Drizzy said, bring you back Ahmad Diallo to Conference League. He needs it. Well, you know, Ahmad Diallo, he's having a really good season with Sunderland. And he's having, you know, consistent game time. And he's worked his way into that situation, even being on loan. So he can be proud of that. And I'm extremely happy that Manchester United didn't kind of follow through on potentially bringing him back to the club for an added option. Because for me, when you send a player out on loan and they're doing well, you want them to keep that confidence going, keep that consistency going. And I think that will be the case for him, you know? Cohen Carter-Williams saying, my advice is that Elanga is also young. Players under 25 years old should be given time. Our time frames are way off from reality. And you know what? I can 100% agree with you on that one. That's a really good comment. I think sometimes we can all lack that element of having time and patience, especially in this day and age. There is little to no patience, you know, with social media, so many different things. Everybody wants results instantly, and unfortunately, that's not the case in the grand scheme of things when it comes to world football. Young players need time to make mistakes, go in there, show their qualities, but also show their weaknesses so that they can go on the training pitch and improve upon those weaknesses. And hopefully that will be the case under Erik ten Hag and his coaching staff going forward, once we build a bit of structure and continuity within the hierarchy of the club. Super Nick saying it's going to be interesting to see how Garnacho is managed. Let's see. Be stress-free like me, people, although that's starting to test me, saying, man, a stress-free society. Drizzy saying Garnacho reminds me of Federico Macheda. That is an interesting one. That is an interesting one. Let us know why, Drizzy. Super Nick saying youth player development is a thing of the past, saying Super Nick. You know what? I still think it's a thing. But once again, you need to have good structure. That's the most important thing when developing young people. You need to have good structure in order to develop and put those players in an environment where they can be comfortable, where they are happy with learning and asking questions, and there is transparency. There is a whole load of communication. And that is the most important thing for me. That is the most important thing for me in the end of the day. Shout out to Vibes. Hope you're doing well. Today's been blessed. Appreciate you coming by each and every time. Saying the overreaction on Garnacho is weird. You know, I will say that because in the end of the day, I don't know why the picture's not showing up there. In the end of the day, after one game, and what I'm disappointed in, most importantly, is the fact that we've fallen into this trap once again. You know, we've seen Sancho just come back. We've fallen into the trap once again of singling out individuals. Donovan Williams, thank you for the follow. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Welcome to the family. Big up yourself each and every time. Yeah, we've fallen into the trap. Hey, big up, Manj. Big up yourself. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for coming through. But yeah, yeah, it's one of them ones there where we can't just be singling out players. We have to give them time, but also we have to hold the whole team accountable. If we have a performance like that against these, we hold the whole team accountable. We give constructive criticism, and we also weigh out the positives as well of the game. The positives of the league game, we were able to come back into it, get back into the game and level it, and potentially we even had chances to win the game. Rafael Varane header, like if Garnacho takes maybe one of his two opportunities, and I'm sure there were more even before and after that. The negatives were that we started slow, we conceded the goal. In possession, we weren't so great. We looked a bit lackadaisical in that regard, in retaining possession and controlling the patterns of the game. And we really allowed Leeds on the counter-attack, especially in that first half, to say, listen, we're going to sit back, we're going to win back the ball from you, and every time we go forward, there's going to be numbers, and we're going to put you under pressure, and we're going to control the pace of this game and speed it up a little bit, which Manchester United were shocked from the very first minute after that Nonto goal until, I would say, when we kind of started to gain a bit of control in the second half after being 2-0 down. He's been a game changer a few times this season, saying vibes regarding Alejandro Garnacho. Definitely. Drizzy saying, I doubt his decision-making is bad. So, you know, it's interesting. And in the end of the day, listen, everybody has a different opinion on different ends of the spectrum. We are happy with that. And it's always good to have a good opinion as long as it's warranted, as long as you can back it up. So we will see with time. Right now, my stance is you got to give young players time to develop. And there's a lot of stuff going on in and around the club. So let's see what happens when the ownership situation changes, and hopefully we're able to build a bit of consistency and continuity and a good structure within the institution of Manchester United. The whole team gave me Ralph Ragnick energy, and I didn't like it. Well, yeah, that's an interesting one. I'm not going to go too much into that game because we're going to speak about on the United Tunes next week. But yeah, I understand Super Nick 100%. Now, I'm going to gloss over this one with the Garnacho situation, because I just wanted to touch on a story that came out this week regarding on him closing in on a new contract, which is something that has come out for a while. So this is from Felix Keith from the Mirror, saying Spanish newspaper AS reports that Garnacho is ready to sign a new contract with United until June 2028. His deal was due to expire in June 2024, and Garnacho's representatives has held talks with Real Madrid and former club Atletico Madrid over a potential move. However, United appear to have been successful in persuading one of their standout young players to stay put. Last month, Mirror Football reported that United were putting out all the stops for Garnacho and were even willing to hand him an 8-year contract. United are willing to pay the youngster $32,000 a week, with AS reporting that the club wants to use him as the face of their campaigns in South America. Although he was born in Madrid, Garnacho chose to represent Argentina, the country of his birth mother. So this season he has 2 goals and 4 assists in all competitions since being called up to the senior team. He's had some good moments. And once again, it's just important not to overreact when it comes to the player and not, you know, get too hyped up or get too, you know, discouraged when, you know, there is not so much of a good performance. Who needs time? Are we Paddis saying, but this is the problem, Drizzy. We don't need to be calling every single young player that has a good start to their career generational talent. He is a talent. Let's just say that. Alejandro Garnacho is a talent right now, but he needs time to develop into that and fulfill that potential. If we call every single player that comes up at Manchester United a generational talent, then we're going to find ourselves in a scenario where if a player doesn't live up to expectations, all of a sudden they're a complete disappointment. And I just don't see the point of that, you know? Or a new contract. Now I see why his head is hard. You gave that biscuit number 9 over 7 years, but you want to get rid of a kid straight away. If I'm speaking about Anthony Martial. But yeah, it's an interesting one. And look, a lot of people speak about the finances, whether he deserves it or not. And speaking of contracts, I also want to say big up to the main man, Kobbie Mainoo, on receiving a new long-term contract at Manchester United. You know, he's come through in the last month or so. Had a couple performances in cup competitions, Carabao Cup against Charlton, where he made his full debut, appearance against Reading as well. He's been on the bench a few times in these league games. So hopefully he's another guy that can, he can alternate between the first team and the youth teams and continue to develop into a player that Erik ten Hag can see him as and Erik ten Hag needs in this team, in this system. So we shall see. We shall see, ladies and gentlemen, in the end of the day. But big up to Kobbie Mainoo for securing a long-term contract and getting rewarded for his hard work so far as a player. Vibe saying I'm just tired of the double standards. They give the other player years, but a kid has to be world-class straight away. Yeah, listen, that's the thing we were speaking about just like a few minutes ago in regards to the patience that a lot of people don't have nowadays in society. You have a great start to your career or some good performances, and all of a sudden, that's where we hold you as. You have to be that type of player every single game. There will be dips, ups and downs. We saw with Marcus Rashford, for example. He had some great seasons, and then he had, you got worn out, which is a lot of the reports at the time of his injuries. And then a lot of people were criticizing him and saying, all of a sudden that Marcus Rashford is not a Manchester United caliber player anymore and he needs to be sold. Now he's rejuvenated under Erik ten Hag. He's scoring goals, he's impacting and winning games, and everybody loves him again. I think we just need to learn from our lessons and say, hey, let's pull back a little bit. And let's look into the factors as to why potentially a player may be having dips in form and maybe playing well at times. And then we can evaluate it from there and use context. Drizzy saying, Manu, my baller, I'm happy for him. Keep taking small steps and develop properly. Unlike, oh Lord, man said Argentina, Dan James. My Ghanaian baller saying, Drizzy. Super Nick saying coaching has changed the fortune of our team and most of the players we almost gave up on. Let's see what Garnacho can do in this team. Drizzy saying Super Nick, I'm tired of the protection of Garnacho. I didn't see this for Elanga. And I think a lot of Drizzy's opinions come from, people's opinion on Anthony Elanga and kind of them, because I remember before January, a lot of people, including myself, would say, potentially be good for him to go out on loan and play somewhere, because I believe there were clubs like Borussia Dortmund interested. Whether that was a permanent deal or on loan, who knows? But hey, who knows? Because he's not getting a lot of game time here. And we all know it's good to, the best way to kind of develop and become a better player and get used to certain things is to play football in the end of the day. But at the same time, we needed Elanga just in case we have a situation with injuries, considering our team and our squad depth isn't that great to start with. He will have competition and ETH will not be taking no strays once new owners with a better structure. Things will be more competitive, saying Super Nick. Let's see anyway. Well, we're going to go into another story, and that regards ownership, and that's a perfect segue from Super Nick's comment into the ownership situation, because it was reported not long ago. We'll get into the Jim Radcliffe stuff after, but it was reported that by Daily Mail, Mike Keegan, that Qatar investors will bid for Manchester United within days. And there are a lot of different things to go into this. First and foremost, who is mentioned is the Emir of Qatar, who head of its absolute monarchy, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, is committed to, you know, trying to become the next owner of Manchester United, and we'll read a bit more into that now. So it's saying Qatari investors are planning an incredible mega money swoop for Manchester United and want to give manager Erik ten Hag the financial backing to lead the club back to the top. Sources have disclosed a group of private, high wealth individuals based on the oil-rich state, buoyed by Qatar's hosting of the World Cup, have set their sights on a club they view as football's crown jewels. They will make an offer for United in the coming days ahead of the mid-February deadline set by the Glazers. And that deadline is next week, I believe, next week, Friday. And it's a soft deadline, so we shall see what's happened. But they say they are confident their bid will blow the competition out of the water. One potential stumbling block is Qatar Sports Investments' ownership of PSG. One entity cannot own two clubs in the same competition, and United and PSG could meet in Europe, the Champions League, potentially. The bid for United would come from separate individual Qatari investors. There is no interest in taking a partial stake, with only a full-blown takeover being discussed. Insiders have disclosed that the group want to use the knowledge gained from hosting the World Cup and are seeking a new project. There are significant funds available, they said. These people are serious. They want to make sure that United are where they should be, and they are confident theirs will be the strongest bid. So, let me know what you think about that in the comments, and I will have my 2 cents on that one. Let's see what everybody else is saying in the comments. CY7, hope you're doing well. Today's been blessed. Appreciate you coming by each and every time. Welcome to the show. And please be sure to get interacted. And also to everyone, be sure to join the community Discord, because that is where you will have your opportunities to submit certain stories that you find in the week that we can discuss on the shows, the weekly shows. So you are as much important to the show as myself and just everybody in the comments. Drizzy saying, I swear, if they sell to Sir Jim Radcliffe, we riot. I want our money. Get me Mbappe quickly. Saying Drizzy. Hey, that's an interesting. A lot of people have, you know, contrasting opinions over that, because I feel like originally a lot of people were happy with Sir Jim Radcliffe and they wanted him to get involved. And now that, you know, there's interest from Qatar and other places, they would prefer that because of the finances that could potentially be provided to Manchester United, having seen Newcastle United being taken over, and Manchester City having them owners, even though they're in a bit of trouble right now. We'll touch on that ever so slightly at the end of the stream. 5 saying we don't want Radcliffe as well. Let's see. 5 saying Radcliffe, United fan who has a Chelsea season ticket. Oh Lord, well, I didn't know about that one, 5. I did not know about that one. The only reason people want him, he's a United fan. Well, they're saying the Emir of Qatar also is a Manchester United fan. But how much can we really put into that? Who knows? How much can we... I feel like those kind of things are just put out there to impress the fans and say, oh my goodness, he's committed to the club, he loves the club, so he must be able to do right by the club, you know? Please remember to like up the live, like what Super Nick is saying. Share to your friends and frenemies. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. You know what to do. Yeah, man, the first of many shows, and thank you for the support thus far, and thank you to everybody else who has joined the stream. I love to see new faces all the time. Let's see. I don't want to hear about morality nonsense. Everything in there is dirty, saying Drizzy. And you know what? That's a fair comment. There's a United fan called Aaron. Big up to him. On TikTok, he kind of said, listen, you speak about Qatar and places like this where they have a lot of like stakes in different companies and businesses that even operate in the UK within themselves, operate around the world. So, you know, maybe there's a bit of, you know, hypocrisy when it comes to the opinions of, you know, stuff like that. And I'm not just dismissing the human rights and all of that stuff there, but there's a lot of stuff that gets hidden under the rug that I believe probably happens in this country as well. We're speaking about England, the UK, and a lot of the richest people that operate in this country too. You know, like what Drizzy said, you know, people with a lot of money I'm not saying all, but a lot of people who accumulate billions, millions, maybe they put, they do a lot of things in their past to get to that position. But we shall see anyway. Vibe saying, I want an owner who has the facilities to give us the best structure possible. He says Ratcliffe ain't that person, in his opinion. Supernick saying fake outrage is boring. No morality in football, just lots of hypocrisy, saying Supernick, which, we spoke about just now. So, same people saying Qatar, but enjoyed the World Cup. Well, that's again, we live in a world where there's a lot of hypocrisy. I believe even at times, sometimes possibly, ourselves on any given day can possibly find ourselves in a moment where we may be hypocritical, and then we'll catch ourselves and kind of evaluate the situation and come from a more logic standpoint, a more educated standpoint, Some people would actually walk away, and I respect them for believing what they say. But the rest are pretending to be outraged, saying vibes. A CY7 saying 10 Hag plus Qatar equals trophies. Very believing in that one, so you never know what's going to happen. I think the next week's going to be very interesting for us as Manchester United supporters, but also the football club, because like what we mentioned before in this story, there's going to be a little deadline, a soft deadline of all of the offers to come in that the Glazers, I guess, will speak about. So I'll probably, starting from next week, we'll get a lot of reports regarding who's there, maybe a bit more details into who's actually bidding to get control of this football club, whether they want partial stakes or full stakes. They're saying these investors from Qatar, the Emir of Qatar, wants full ownership of the club. There have been reports that potentially, due to the PSG situation and the Qatar Sports investment, if they were to be involved, obviously you can't have full investment of the football club. You can only have a partial stake in Manchester United, because you can't fully own two clubs that will meet in Europe or in the same competition. So that is an interesting one. People have asked also about Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who we will go into now. Because he is the owner of Nice. And I've got something interesting to show you guys regarding the story of Sir Jim Ratcliffe's ownership at Nice when he did take over in 2019. So we will get onto that in a second. But for now, I'm going to report on the next story. CY7. Now, don't even put that energy out there, CY7. Don't even put that energy out there. But I'm saying, I saw someone say you'd rather be mid-table with the Glazers. Wow. My God. My God. My God. Anyway. Yeah, that's wild. But look. So Jim Ratcliffe hires banking giants in bid to pip Qatari investors, coming from the Mirror. Britain's richest man confirmed in January that he intends to try and wrest control at Old Trafford from the Glazer family, who announced in November that the club are up for sale. Ratcliffe was the first party to go public with his interests, but reports earlier this week claimed he will face competition from a group of Qatari investors who he just spoke about. Formal offers for United are set to be submitted imminently as Avram and Joe Glazer look to set up and bring to an end nearly 18 years of unpopular ownership by their family. Ratcliffe is cutting no corners as he bids to take control and has acquired the services of Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan to assist him. Hey, JCY7 saying, I'm worried, bro. Listen, hey, positive energy, positive vibes. Now, we're going to go into a bit of a story which is interesting. So the report adds Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan would be willing to back a takeover bid with bonds and loans, which would see the two banks cover the value of United's existing debt, which stands at roughly $800 million, 658 million pounds. You know the rest, GPDs. Yeah, 658 million pounds, and potentially stump up much more money. So what do you think about that, with those guys willing to, because what that is basically is, because I watched another video on how it was explained, is Ineos would take in the debt, and Sachs and JP Morgan would be able to put in the loans to, I guess, pay off, start to pay off that debt. Would you guys prefer that the debt was just paid off completely outright, and that was just, left in the past. Because, I've also thought about it, and I'm saying, well, if Ineos or those companies take in that debt and take it away from Manchester United, how does that affect the investments into the club regarding the stadium, regarding the academy, women's and men's team, and the signings going forward, and all of that stuff they're investing into a new structure potentially? How does that affect all of that stuff? Let me know what you think in the comments. Super Nick saying, next week we should find out more about the tender being put forward by the Glazers and the bids that have come forward, and who will be entering the process at the next level. We shall see. Too many cooks. But yeah, that's an interesting one. Next week will be something cool. Another part of the story also, which I do want to say before the end, the Glazers initially set a price tag of between 6 billion and 8 billion for the Red Devils, but a sum in the region of 4 billion to 4.5 appears more realistic. The club have a rough value of 3 billion on the New York Stock Exchange, so a bid of up to 4.5 billion could be enough to seal a full takeover from the American family. Vibes coming in saying, not even asking for big name signings. I just want us to have the best structure possible, because if that happens, the rest will take care of itself. Hey, listen, in the end of the day, having a structure in there, we don't need to make those big money signings. We can scout players and we can bring in, we speak about, the fact that Manchester United could have got Caicedo in for 5 million before he moved to Brighton. Little stuff like that. I thought Malacia was a good signing, even though it was there, maybe a Ten Hag option that he knew about. But there needs to be more signings like that where players are scouted. Obviously, you get your high-profile signings as well, but also signings that can go under the radar and learn for a few years and grow into their role in that squad. What kind of billionaire bro money? Jim Radcliffe. I can't sit this one out saying Drizzy. Well, that's an interesting one as to why. Yeah, it is an interesting one. And a lot of people have alluded that if Sir Jim Radcliffe was to buy Manchester United, it would be through Ineos. Not through himself, through Ineos, who have a lot bigger value in terms of the billions that they have put to the company. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments regarding the Qatar in owners potentially investing in the club or wanting to bid for the club. And also Sir Jim Radcliffe, what is your stance? Who would you prefer at this moment of time? And also input into the comments any news stories potentially of somebody else coming up and wanting to own, because I know in the past there have been a few names regarding is it one of somebody in America who owns, is it a baseball team? I believe the baseball team in Chicago. I don't want to get their name wrong. Chicago, is it Red Sox or something like that? But you guys can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I haven't really read too much into that one thus far because there hasn't been a lot of stories. Super Nick saying Ineos as a brand need to be investigated, in my opinion. Let me know why in the comments, Super Nick. Let me know why. Now, as you can see in the thumbnail, as we move away from that ownership situation, we've been speaking about Harry Kane, and this is one of the last two stories that we're going into during this stream. Actually, you know what, before I move on to that, there is an interesting story regarding that I said I was going to mention about Jim Radcliffe's ownership at Nice, and see if it kind of sways you guys' opinion after. So I'm not going to read the whole article, but there's a bit where I want to kind of get into, which is quite interesting because, they speak about in 2016-17 season where Nice, they challenged for the league-owned title under Lucien Favre, and things were looking good and they had their own structure, and where things potentially changed when Jim Radcliffe took over in 2019. So in the 6 years before Radcliffe bought Nice for 100 million, the club finished in the top 4 of Ligue 1 3 times. That success, under Claude Puel, and then Favre, was achieved thanks to astute scouting in France and some of Europe's less fashionable leagues, where they acquired cost-effective talent and developed players to be sold at a profit. It's a model nearly every Ligue 1 team club now uses in some forms after its success at Nice, and more recently, Monaco. The Radcliffe era started with a promising 5th place finish under Patrick Vieira in the shortened 2019-2020 campaign. However, Vieira was sacked by Christmas 2020 as Nice slumped to 11th in the table. Vieira's assistant, Adrian Uresa, took over as caretaker for the rest of the season before the club appointed Christophe Galtier in the summer of 2021. The arrival of the manager who had just won the Ligue 1 title with Lille brought promise, but Nice dropped away again and had to settle for a place in the Europa Conference League. Their demoralizing defeat to Nantes in the Coupe de France final in May accelerated an increasingly chaotic period of Ineos's running of the club. Now, Sir Dave Brailsford, the former Team GB cycling coach who now serves as the Ineos Director of Sport, acted as Nice's de facto Director General in the summer. He conducted an audit of the club, then set about overseeing their transfer policy. That audit dragged on, and combined with spectacular falling out between Galtier and Fournier, the club wasted weeks of valuable time in the transfer market and were left scrambling. Doesn't that sound familiar, ladies and gentlemen? Brailsford's audit led to the departure of CEO Bob Ratcliffe, Jim's brother, and the transfer guru Fournier. Galtier might have been sacked as well, had his old club friend Luis Campos not been installed at PSG, essentially allowing him to fail upwards. Galtier had been openly critical of the club's recruitment before he left and was apparently concerned about Ineos' commitment and the caliber of people making transfer decisions. The manager had reportedly lost faith in Ineos before leaving for PSG. So, ladies and gentlemen, looking at that story, what do you guys, before I move into the Harry Kane situation, what do you guys, and even everybody watching this video after, in the comments, tell me what you think about that and how that has kind of swayed your decision and thought process regarding the ownership. Because when I read that story, I found it extremely interesting. Because in the end of the day, what we've been speaking about for quite a while now in this ownership situation with Manchester United, putting people in place that are not doing the great job or are not, at the best in that position in terms of recruitment, transfers. We've been taking long and in the market and missing out on players that we've gone in for. It sounds all too familiar. And in the end of the day, I'm going to be skeptical of anybody that comes into the club until they prove themselves and prove their, their loyalty and commitment to making Manchester United a big club again in the footballing department. Let's see what everybody else in the comments saying. CYC saying, let's go into that one. Ratcliffe net worth is 10 billion, calls 10 billion, but this is Manchester United saying. But yeah, I hear you in that one. Ineos, I believe Ineos's net worth is a lot bigger. So let me just get this a bit more accurate. Let's see, Ineos's network. I'm not sure if I can find that one, but it is a lot more than the 13.3 billion that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is valued at. Even though he is Britain's richest man, but his company is worth a lot more than that, and you would imagine that being how many markets they're in. So yeah, Ineos generated sales of £50 billion, and that was reported in 2021, I believe. So that's where he is at in terms of his company's finances, Ineos. Let's just say over the past 3 years, they have become very visible, saying Super Nick. I don't want Kane, give me Osimhen, saying Drizzy. Vibe saying need everyone on the same wavelength. Super Nick saying I smell a rat. CYC saying he ain't that guy, oil me up. Yeah, that's an interesting situation. And once again, in the comment section below after this video, give your thoughts in the comments. Join the community Discord and we can talk about it. Have your say in there. Submit some more stories as they come out to contribute to this show next week. But yeah, I believe we will find out more in regards to everything and who's bidding for the club and even more information once that deadline comes or even before that. But we're going to move to the next story, and that regards Manchester United's striking issue and what we're going to do in the summer. So reports from the Daily Express are saying that Tottenham will not sell Harry Kane to Manchester United or any other Premier League rival this summer, according to reports. Kane is poised to enter the final 12 months of his existing Spurs contract this summer. Premier League rivals Manchester United are showing interest in a move for the 29-year-old as they look to land a goal-scoring number 9. Cristiano Ronaldo departed the club before the new year, while Anthony Martial has long battled injury problems. With Kane down to the final year of his deal at the end of the season, United are sniffing around a potential deal, but the Times say Spurs have no interest whatsoever in selling arguably their greatest player ever to the Red Devils. So yeah, there's another situation there, whether this is true or not. You would imagine that Daniel Levy doesn't want to sell one of his best players to his rivals. And they kind of spoke about the Dimitar Berbatov situation when he came to Manchester United from Spurs all those years back, and how, you know, that was kind of a sticky situation regarding Tottenham and what happened to them. But, you know, if there weren't to be a Harry Kane signing, there are other names out there like Victor Osimhen from Napoli's having another good season in Italy. Dusan Vlahovic from Juventus. Benjamin Sesko is a name that has been brought up there, just to name a few. Who would you prefer in the summer? Who would you sign if you were in the position of Manchester United being that, you know, transfer director? Who would you look at and be more confident in? Or would you sign a, you know, try and persist with the Harry Kane signing and see if Spurs would budge? Let me know in the chat. You know, Drizzy said he would prefer Victor Osimhen. Vibes, I know he might have an opinion on this, probably preferring Harry Kane. My opinion on Harry Kane has changed over time, because I kind of took that approach of saying, you know, he's kind of had injury problems here and there, which he has had from time to time. But you can't deny the man's scoring record in the end of the day. When it's all said and done, he could be the highest scorer in Premier League history, passing Alan Shearer's record of 260 goals. He recently passed, you know, the Spurs record and becoming an all-time scorer over there, which is another fantastic one, scoring in their victory against Manchester City. Vibes say he was Harold and 21, you know what I mean? Harold. CYC saying Osimhen or Vlahovic, he could be. Super Nichols is saying AM9, Anthony Martial will be turfed out in the summer. We will need at least 2 different types of strikers. We shouldn't be limiting ourselves to one. And I agree with that, to be honest. And shout out to my guy Roland, Pros Only Sports. Be sure to go and check him out on the YouTube. And he was kind of saying to me, look, we need to have a guy who is here for the now and can propel us up in the standings and potentially contend for a league going forward, but also a guy who's an understudy who can go under the radar, learn a bit from that top player, and then develop over time into that role. So what do you guys think about that one? Super Nick saying plus a youth player as an understudy. Exactly that. Agreed. We need to find a younger gem as well, saying Vibes. So big up to you guys on that one, Super Nick and Vibes both agreeing on the point. But yeah, there are also guys out there and other names. I'm sure there are many other names that will be brought up from now until the summertime. And the summertime will be interesting because we do expect to have new owners by then. Whether we'll have a set structure by then, hopefully, maybe, potentially. But we shall see. We shall see. Hopefully by the summer we have a proper scouting team in place. Exactly that. Just what I was alluding to, Vibes. Hopefully that is the case and the ownership situation gets done at a reasonable time, because I heard one story saying that potentially this could go on until the summertime, and that is not ideal for the club if it goes behind schedule, because then that puts Manchester United and Eric Ten Hag in a sticky situation where potentially we'll have to rush and not really fully evaluate people, evaluate players with the right people up top. But that's if we are to change. Who says we could potentially stay with the same structure we have right now? Who knows? Who knows, people? CYC saying Osimhen plus Kane, we need 2 for real. You know what? I feel like that's a bit too ambitious, because both of those guys will be going for a lot of money. Harry Kane, even though he will enter his last deal, what is it? Potentially 60+ million to get him in. And I feel like Spurs will put an extra few millions of pounds on there in the end of the day, because it's Harry Kane. And, he doesn't want to sell it to a rival, Daniel Levy, And Victor Osimhen, it's already been reported that he will be over 100 million in signing. So, 160 plus million on 2 players. Is that the most smart investment? Probably not. But I understand why. That's like a FIFA type scenario there. But yeah, that is, I think, in my opinion, unrealistic. But let me know what you think as well. The market is going to be crazy. We need real football personnel, or we get fleeced again, saying Super Nick. Exactly that. Road to 500 subs. Big up to Vibes, man. Keep sharing, bro. It's good times over here. And thank you for being here. Most importantly, everybody that has been here over the course of this first United report. I've enjoyed it. And I hope you guys are liking the new background, the new studio on deck. You know them ones there. Loving it, loving it, loving it. But thank you for being here. It's always you guys that make these shows, and I always try my best to, make you guys a crucial part, the heart of these shows, with the comments and the conversations that come from it. I hear people talking about Ansu Fati. What do you think? I'm a big fan of Ansu Fati, innit? If you know from my Twitch streams, link in the description, by the way, FIFA Ultimate Team streams, Ansu Fati from last year, that was my guy. Unfortunately, he's had injury issues and, bad advisement from the Barcelona board. If you watch a video by Tifo Football, it kind of explains, it was a recent video, explains what happened to Ansu Fati and why he's been struggling, a part of that injury troubles, but also bad advisement and being rushed back to that Barcelona team too quickly, which led to another injury kind of hampering him, and why he's kind of potentially lost confidence on the pitch and isn't having the same impact that he did when he initially came into the squad at that young age. There's still a chance for him, but it's just an unfortunate situation there, and potentially he's unhappy at Barcelona and wants to leave. Would you take that chance? You bringing in a guy who's had a lot of injuries. I'm not too sure about his record this year, but I know he's had a few injuries alone already. So it is quite a risky one, but still a young and promising player at that. By saying, heard he's had a few injuries, but I remember how highly they were speaking about him. Exactly. CYC saying financial takeover. Super Nick saying oil barrels rolling to the red side of Manny. Hey, that is a Mazzoline, isn't it? That is an absolute Mazzoline. But yeah, to end that subject, before we go into the final topic of the stream, yeah, who would you prefer as striking options, as attacking options at Manchester United? And yeah, give your thoughts in the comment section below. Super Nick saying Ansu Fati has been ill-advised. This is how players' careers are destroyed and why some players just take money and don't care. Yeah, because unfortunately, some places don't have the players' best interests at heart, or maybe they don't have the best decision makers around them to say, this is what you need to do, Ansu, to get the best out of yourself, not just now, but for the long term. And I hope going forward that happens for him and many of the young players involved in Manchester United and in and around the world of football. CYC saying Bellingham made the best decision of his career going to Dortmund instead of United at the time. But that was an interesting one, right? Because we could have got Jude Bellingham from Birmingham at the time, but he decided to go to Borussia Dortmund. And that's what we've seen with a lot of players: go overseas, earn your craft, to learn a different style of football and develop your game. And it has benefited a lot of guys. Jadon Sancho at Dortmund, Jude Bellingham at Dortmund, who could potentially be getting a big money move in the summer. Clubs linked to Liverpool, Manchester United, and I'm sure there will be others as well. But yeah, Tammy Abraham going to Roma. He had a good season last year and he scored a few goals this year as well. And there are many other examples out there of players doing that, going abroad. Chris Smalling rejuvenated his career and got regular playing time at Roma when he went out to Italy as well, So many examples of not just young players, just English players in general, going out abroad and learning a different style of football and becoming better players because of that. With the Super League, footballers' careers are going to be half, saying Super Nick. Man, that's going to be another interesting topic that I probably might have to speak about. Well, if more information comes out about it, I will speak about it eventually. We touched on it at the early parts of this episode, but I didn't really say too much about it because there wasn't a lot of information except for the ones that we know now. But yeah, fixture congestion is at an all-time high, especially within the last few years. How is that going to be solved? Are they looking to solve that? We're speaking UEFA, the FA, all of these governing bodies, or do they just want to put more games for the fans to earn more money and to bring more interest into the game? Is it all about that? Or are you looking at the players and saying, hey, we need to do right by them as well and find the right balance? Who knows? But the final story I wanted to touch on is a little away from Manchester United. And how do you guys feel about Manchester City's issues? So it was broken at the start of this week on Monday morning that the Premier League hit Manchester City with over 100 financial fair play related charges. And look, this will be a situation that is going to be long. Like, we won't hear the final answer from here. But, apparently this relates to a series of alleged breaches of financial rules between the 2009-10 season and 2017-18 season, which is incredibly damning. That's all. That's a long, long time, and a lot of titles were won in that process. City are accused by the Premier League of not providing accurate financial information, in particular with respects to its revenue, including sponsorship revenue, its related parties, and its operating costs. The club are also accused of not fully disclosing managerial remuneration for a 4-year period. These related to the 2010 to 2012-13 season when Roberto Mancini was in charge. If you remember that, he was the first guy to win the title for Manchester City back in the days. They also stand accused of breaching Premier League rules on profit and sustainability in 3 separate seasons, 2015-16, 16-17, and 17-18. The Premier League has additionally alleged City did not comply with UEFA's regulations around club licensing and financial fair play in the 2013-14 and between 14-15 and 17-18. And if you remember, at that time, City were banned for 2 years by UEFA, but it was overturned once they went to the Court of Arbitration for Sport in July of that same year. Apparently, in this one, Manchester City cannot go to the Court of Arbitration of Sport and appeal this one. So, if the Premier League and those people who were making the decisions evaluate that they were guilty from at least 50% of the offences that were planted or that they were accused of, then these are the things that could happen. Pep Guardiola, first and foremost, has said that if there were any wrongdoing, and I believe this was the original time where they were banned from Europe, but it was overturned. He said if the club did anything wrong, he would leave. Could that potentially start a domino effect with players and other staff within that? Maybe. But also, the sanctions range from a reprimand and fines to points deductions, and even expulsion from the Premier League. Any points deductions could be applied when the decision is made or retrospectively, raising the prospect of City being stripped of titles. It is suggested that if there was a points deduction, it would be applied going forwards as opposed to previous seasons. So I would believe that Manchester City would either keep the titles or they would just erase the titles from history. So, we would know it happened, but in the grand scheme of things in the history of the Premier League, they would probably try their best to remove all of that stuff, which is crazy regarding all of the moments that I've had. Centurions, the Aguero moment, which is heartbreaking to us Manchester United fans to this day. It's crazy. So much success that they've had over the course of the 2010s. They said, according to Rule W.51.7, the panel could choose to combine any number of punishments outlined in the rulebook to impose other sanctions they deem appropriate. However, any punishment would need to be proportionate to the breaches in question, or it could be overturned by appeal. Let's see what everybody in the comments is saying. Well, my opinion based on that is damning, isn't it? Because this is Manchester City. They've had, a massive turnaround in regards to their fortunes of becoming a successful club, one of the best teams in Europe, where they were far away from that. Far away from that many years ago in the as early as the late 2000s, sorry, the late 2000s when their new ownership took over. So, they had a massive turnaround, won a lot of trophies, competing for the Champions League, which they could potentially win this year. And for something like this to come out over 100 charges, like, there must be some truth to it. There must be some truth to it in the end of the day. And look, we will find out. I saw a story a few days ago saying that it is going to take a long time, potentially even years, to come to a conclusion regarding this whole case and the intricacies of everything and the wrongdoings of the Manchester City ownership with their finances. But we'll just have to wait and see. For now, all we can do is continue waiting and being drip fed information here and there. But let's see what everybody else is saying in the comments. A few people saying 23 times regarding to Manchester United, because I know there was a lot of hype at the start regarding, potentially Manchester United getting some Premier League titles because they finished second in 3 separate occasions. Liverpool as well getting Premier League titles, I think 2 on their part for their seasons where they competed with Manchester City at a high level. CYC saying Ten Hag is the ultimate manager now, board manager now. City fans are defending the owners. Tonight they don't know what they are. Thieves saying Super Nick. That's another interesting one. Well, look, I think, like I said before, there has to be some truth to things in regards to that, and how much there is truth to it, how many charges are truthful, how many are going to be proven not, I don't know. I've also seen people say, we've seen Manchester City wriggle their way out of situations like this before. Who's to say they can't do it again? This situation feels different this time, in my opinion. But once again, we'll have to wait and see, right? Shout out to Kevin Benson. Hope you're doing well. Your day's been blessed. Appreciate you coming by each and every time. He's saying, kick City out because of cheating, but let them keep the trophies. My word. So in that scenario, saying kick them out down to the Championship for a year, Kevin Benson is saying, and allow them to keep the trophies. I also saw somebody else saying, well, let that be an example to clubs going forward and teams in world football of not to handle situations. Let it be a reminder of that. Listen, eventually you will be caught out no matter what. And, you can see that in the end of the day. Let that be a reminder to all the Premier League teams, all the aspiring teams to be there, all the potential owners around the world, that this stuff cannot be tolerated and it's unacceptable in the game of football. Super Nick says, I say put pride aside, give us our titles for all of the years of distress we have had to endure. But you know what? Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Super Nick. But at the same time, and there's shamelessness. There is shamelessness in the end. Okay, there is shamelessness in the end. But when you sit back and think about it, that the celebrations just won't be the same in regards to, we've just secured the league title, my word, we're going out the parade, we're celebrating the happiness there, the delight that it creates, that moment is in the past now. So I guess it's one of them ones. I know a lot of people are saying we won our titles, bruv, we won our titles, but we'll have to see what happens, eh? Vibe saying, I just seen people's number 9 isn't available for the Barca game. Well, yes, Eric Ten Hag had his presser, and he said potentially, those guys, the likes of McTominay, Martial, they won't be available for the Barcelona game. They won't be available for the Leeds game. And they said, well, let's wait and see how things progress over the next few days. We've only got a couple days to go until the game. So I doubt they'll be available. And then the Barcelona game will come on Thursday, I believe, if I look at Man United's schedule going forward. So we've got Leeds United on Sunday. And then the first leg of that Europa League playoff tie between Barcelona on Thursday, the 23rd at 8 o'clock. Not like at 8 o'clock, sorry, at 5:45. 16th of February. I was looking at the second leg, sorry. That's the second leg on the 23rd. But the first leg is on the 16th of February at 5:45. So it's going to be interesting to see if we get him back. But yeah, the injury issues continue. The injury issues continue. And yeah, I just thought it would be good to add our opinion on the Manchester City. And if you're watching this video after, be sure to hit the comments and have your say as well. But ladies and gentlemen, let me get through the last few comments of the stream as well. That's if the League Cup is secure. Saying fine, the Barca match is going to be insane. I hope that some City's recover in time. That's if the League Cup is secured. Saying vibes. Someone said they wouldn't mind going out of the Europa. Hey, well, we've heard man saying it. You know, and some people of the opinion that potentially dropping out of the competition is the way to go, you know? Supernick saying the Arteta School of Thought. Arteta School of Thought, and they're in a different position contending for a title. But you know what? I'm going to wrap up this episode. Man, we're an hour and 15 minutes in. What a first United report. Thank you to everybody in the chat. You know what? Big ups to Supernick, CYC, Vibes, Kevin Benson. Shout out to Manchu is here. Drizzy in the cut as well. Just everybody showing love. Kerwin Carter Williams, shout out to you. Everybody, Eddie's Football Waffle is here earlier as well. Just shout out to everybody for showing love over the course of this episode. You know, I hope to bring these at least once a week, every week. And there may be emergency episodes if big news is released at the time. But yeah, I hope you can stay around for many more. We've got a watch-along coming on Sunday for the Stay United watch-along. Leeds versus Manchester United at Ellen Road. United trying to bounce back in that one. Next week, we'll have the United Twins with myself and my twin bro, Cappy, reacting to both games because we're doing a back-to-back game reaction instead of just doing 2 individual episodes within itself. And then we're going to move on from there. So hopefully you guys can tune into that one. Also, subscribe to the second channel, CM22, where we'll be doing separate watch-alongs away from Manchester United. So we've got NBA chillathons. We have an NBA chillathon tonight, in fact. The New York Knicks taking on the Philadelphia 76ers. So I hope I can see some of you guys there. Stream starts at 11:45 p.m. UK time. So big ups to yourself. Also, wrestling chillathons in the cut too. And just casual football watch-alongs for games other than Manchester United. Follow me on Twitch, link in the description as well. Be playing games there from time to time. Going to be live there tomorrow at 7 p.m. So hope to see you lots there too. So CYC saying big up to CM22 in the chat legends. As always, big up yourself as well. For those watching on playback, make sure you hit the like button and support the main man. Shout out to Vi as always, man. And all of the super mods in the cut supporting the shows, man. I'm so appreciative of you guys in the chat. Just adding to the energy and the conversations in the episodes as always. So big ups to you, man. Supernick saying big up everyone. This has been great. CYC saying lit show. Thank you very much each and every time. Kevin Benson saying it's weird that no matter how much I hate Man U, I still cheer for them in Europe. Cheers from and New Zealand setting, huh? Am I reading that correct? Big up yourself each and every time, Kevin Benson. And now that is a wonderful thing. What is the time in New Zealand? It is 4:13 a.m. My word. Or maybe it could be a little later depending on where he's at. Because in another place it's 4:58. Different time zones. But listen, nonetheless, it's early in the morning, yeah. Kevin Benson, I want to thank you for being here. And thanks to everybody that's here. Big up Kevin too, saying CY7, sorry. Exactly that, ladies and gentlemen. But listen, we'll be back next week with another CM's United report. If any big news comes out, we'll be there. If it's massive news regarding the ownership situation or any big updates regarding anything else in or around Manchester United, we'll be there. So everybody, have a wonderful rest of the day. Once again, I hope to see you on the NBA Chillathon on the second channel. If not, have a wonderful rest of the day. Enjoy the start to your weekends. And until the next time. See what CY7 saying. At least a free kick still in my head. Bowler. And that was a peak free kick, fam. I was in the ground that day. Last minute, off the crossbar and in. Chef's kisses. Oh, man. It was a sticky one still and wasn't our best game. But hopefully we bounce back on Sunday. Until the next time, I'll see you lot sinner. Be sure to drop a like, share to your friends and frenemies. You know what to do, people.